My new book is called Steve McCurry, Untold, the story behind the pictures. This is very exciting for me because it's really a very different kind of book than I've ever done before. It's a book looking at how I work, the backstory, really my process, digging into my archive and getting pictures and documents and ephemera that really I haven't looked at for, in some cases, 20 or 30 years. I think one of the most exciting stories I worked on was the monsoon. When I was a child, I remember seeing the work of Brian Brake, who had done a story on the monsoon for Life magazine back in 1962. And it really stuck in my imagination that at some point in my life, I wanted to go and experience that phenomenon, that incredible rain. Sort of fast forward 30 years, I found myself a photographer, and I thought back to that story of the monsoon. I thought, I really want to, in a way, reinvent that story and do it in my own way. During my monsoon coverage in India, I learned that there was this terrible flood in one of the cities in Gujarat. So I got a flight, and to my horror, I saw that 3/4 of the city was underwater. People were living on their roofs. They had no fresh water. They had no food. So I set about documenting this situation. I literally spent the entire day walking around up to my waist or my chest in water, and the water was very dirty and full of dead animals. It was very disgusting. But it was fascinating how people persevere, how they can live through these situations and actually cope and do quite well despite this kind of very difficult circumstance. During the monsoon in Bombay, I was in a taxi at a red light, and this mother and her child came up to my car window looking for some money. This all happened in about 7 or 8 seconds. I raised my camera. I quickly took 2 frames. I brought my camera down. The light changed, and off we went. Well, 2 months later, I'm editing my pictures at the magazine, and I came across these 2 frames, and I was really delighted that the picture came out as well as it did, and it really seemed, in a way, symbolic of kind of my world and her world and the contrast. I'm in this air-conditioned bubble. She's out there in the elements, the heat and the rain, and how these 2 worlds came together for a moment, and then suddenly we left, and we drove off, and that was the end of the story. This is a very exciting project for me because it's really for the first time I'm getting into the backstory, telling the stories about how the pictures were made, how they were published. We have tear sheets and magazine spreads and newspaper spreads on how these were actually ended up being used in publication. Really is a kind of comprehensive look at my career and really how I put these stories together. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, and I'm hoping that the book gets a great response.